It's been a long time since I filmed a video, but I'm back in 2024, hopefully on a regular schedule to bring you book recommendations. I have not stopped reading since I have taken a break from booktube. I've literally have been keeping consistently up with my reading, so if you haven't followed me on Goodreads yet, make sure you do, because that's where I really just live update my thoughts on my current reads and my read books. I just took a break from booktube. There's really no explanation for it. I guess it's just out of pure sheer laziness, because this is not my full-time job and I was just kind of really lazy with editing videos. But hopefully this year in 2024, I made a resolution for myself that I'm going to start posting consistently again on YouTube, or at least holding myself accountable for producing some new content for my social media pages. Make sure to check down below in the description for social media channels that you haven't followed me yet. So Goodreads, Instagram, whatever. I keep up to date there, or I'm going to try my best to for 2024. That is not why you guys are here for this video. You guys are here to see the books that I have read that I thought that I personally wouldn't like as much, and that subsequently became my best books of 2023. So let's get started with some recommendations. So I think the first book that I want to recommend is this one that I read very recently in the month of December. It's called The Partner Track by Helen Wang, and I read this book thinking that it's just going to be this contemporary fiction novel involving an Asian American lawyer who gets caught up in a love triangle. If you guys didn't know, this book was adapted to a TV series recently, and there were some really amazingly attractive actors and actresses in the show. I haven't watched the show, but I've seen promo for it, and they're all so stunningly beautiful. So I thought it was going to be like a love triangle romance situation. It did not turn out to be that way. It turned out to be more of a contemporary fiction novel, which I have no issues about, because this book was a fabulous and just so amazing and so empowering and just so strong. It's about an Asian American lawyer who wants to become partner in her very prestigious law firm. So she plays by the rules, and she plays by the guy's rules. And she's willing to just kind of keep taking hits at work as long as she's kind of moving up the corporate ladder. It's there where she is getting stuck in these situations at work where there's like culture appropriation taking place, there's racist remarks that take place, and the whole reputation of the firm goes into flames. So they decide to make a culture group club situation at work where they support each other and different races and basically try to make themselves look better. And our heroine gets caught up in that mess and that business. Along the way, she also falls in love with a guy. But do we know if that guy is an asshole, or do we know if that guy is a good person for her? You'll have to read the book to figure it out. Okay, so the next book that really surprised me in that I loved it was this very inconspicuous book that I picked out from the library because it was just an audiobook that was available and it wasn't that long, and I thought, what the heck, let's just try it out. It's by Terry Wilson, and it's called Once Upon a Royal Summer, and it's published under Hallmark Publishing, which is, I thought, was really strange too as well. Hallmark movies makes books now. Anyway, so Once Upon a Royal Summer sounds exactly what the title is about. It's about a single father who is the crown prince of this very small European country. He has a daughter that has been losing her spark recently. He noticed that she's looking a little bit sad. So he decides to kind of take a break from the royal duties to bring his daughter to the land of America, to amusement park rides and to amusement park theme parks, I guess. So where she can grow up as a child, because she has her own royal duties as well as a royal family member. So it's there where we meet our heroine, who is dressed up as a princess. Her job is to make children's dreams come true at this theme park, and she really enjoys her job. What I really loved about this book was just how pure and innocent our heroine was. She's just genuinely such a deeply caring person, and she's so sweet. And our hero is gruff. He's cold. He's skeptical of her. But how she just presents herself immediately makes you as a reader fall in love with her and want to be her. And then also seeing him fall in love with her was just so amazing. Ultimately, such a great, wholesome story, and I definitely will be checking out more Terry Wilson's books. Now, the next book that I want to recommend is also a Terry Wilson book, which is not part of a series, because I think it's just part of the same world as this princess novel is taking part of, but this one's called Once Upon a Royal Christmas. So this one involves our heroine who is dressed up as a princess. Once again, she's part of like the same amusement park ride as like the other book. And then she goes to the small country they hired for their Christmas celebration in that small country. So she's kind of like a paid actor. She's walking around, she's interacting with guests, you know, she's having fun. Until she bumps into this like really cute guy and she thinks nothing of it. They spark up a conversation, they develop kind of like a friendship, and it's then that she realized that he is also a royal family member, and now they kind of have a chance of this whirlwind royal romance. And honestly, it's like the same thing as the last book from Terry Wilson. This one was nothing short of it. It was exactly like a replica of it, except for it was just like a different type of setup. But once again, our characters are just so endearing. They're just so sweet. And you just feel so much for them because they care so much about the children. They care so much about our hero. They care so much about other characters in the story. So definitely check this out if you haven't already. Okay, so the next book that I have to recommend to you is this one called Love Under Contract by Casey Connor. And this one is a fake dating romance. Our heroine is like a business person, I believe. I don't think she's a lawyer, but she's like really high executive in this like really nice company. And she's making the right moves. She takes no prisoners and she's just cutthroat. She is just somebody that, you know, a lot of strong female girls want to be. So she decides that she's gonna have a one-night stand at a bar and she's just gonna have fun with it because she meets this really cute guy who is a blue-collar gentleman, and you know, their opposites attract. They have fun for one night, but it's only until she realizes it's like the holiday season and she needs to go see her family again, who is kind of like worried about her because she's kind of like always alone all the time and just focusing on her career and not really focusing on her relationship aspect. So she decides to kind of hire him as her fake boyfriend for the holidays, and it's there where they're constantly, you know, like learning more about each other as they interact more with her family, and then they're also working through her own securities as well, and then with his own securities as well, because he's a blue-collar gentleman. And what does that mean in a relationship where, you know, there's someone who's white-collared and then one's blue-collared, you know, from two different sides of the world? Will our heroine know the true meaning of Thanksgiving and Christmas and, you know, walk away from her high-powering job? I can give you a spoiler, and I can say that this book blew my mind, or at least it surprised me in a way, in a positive light, where our heroine does not have to choose between her career and her love because she's smart enough to realize that she can balance both. And that's exactly why I love this book so much, and I think everybody should go pick this one up if you are wanting something fresh. So the next book that surprised me is from authors that were new to me, but they're not new to viewers of BookTube or just readers of indie romance. I just kind of I'm slow with the picking up the books that people are reading. This one's by Parker S. Huntington and L.J. Shen, two authors that I didn't really read in the past, and their latest novel, My Dark Romeo. And honestly, when I picked up this book, I thought nothing of it. I honestly thought I would hate it because I don't really read indie romances, and there's a reason why. I think it's just because I think they're overhyped. I think sometimes they're a little bit too cheesy, and sometimes they need a lot of editing. Now, that's just my personal gripe with it, but I've slowly become an indie romance author, so please don't come out and get for me. But My Dark Romeo is a forced arranged marriage romance, and it just sounds like a good time already, right, guys? So our heroine and our hero have this really nice moment at a wedding, right? And then it's revealed to the whole wedding team and like the whole wedding guests, like the whole wedding, that, you know, they were caught up in this situation. They have brought shame on their respective powerful families. So now they are going to be forced to wed to save the girls' reputations. It's kind of like a little bit old school Regency romance where, you know, our heroine gets caught up in a scandal and she needs to marry to protect her reputation. But regardless, it's them being close forced proximity, living in the same house, trying to, you know, be husband and wife, but also keeping separate from themselves. But then also the house isn't like, you know, extravagantly big where you can just like forget about the other person. And our heroine surprised me in a way. I thought that she was just going to be dark and moody, but she wasn't. She was like fun, lighthearted, quirky, funny. And she would bring him to giggling fits. Like, she was just so bizarre. Like, she's so different from our hero that it made the story so interesting and so cute, because you could just see our hero's like walls just crumbling down because he was just so set on like revenge and trying to harm her family. Does he realize that like it's not a big deal, and that he just wants to pursue happiness and love with her? And I just loved it so much. So I'm sure a lot of people already read this book, but I just had to highlight it, that this was a book that surprised me, that I enjoyed. Okay, so the next book that I thought I wouldn't like, but I ended up loving a lot more than I thought I would, is this one called Off the Map by Trish Dollar. I've read Trish Dollar before. Her books are always just so emotional because it deals with like grief, and it deals with our characters like moving on from the death of a loved one. So that's like a huge trigger warning if you haven't read Trish's books before. But Off the Map is like book 3 in her like series that she has with St. Martin's, and I think the series is called Beck Sisters. So basically our heroine would love to just like do these like grand adventures. She'll get in her car, she'll just drive around the countryside, she'll take a plane, she'll go to different countries, she'll travel blog, and she'll make money like that. She had a great time until I think her dad got really sick, and then her dad needed to have someone watch over him more frequently. So she felt like that guilt that she needed to be closer with the dad, because she never knew like when would be his like last day on this planet, you know, like when will he pass away. So she never wanted to like, you know, not be there for him. But when you do that, you kind of lose a part of yourself, you lose part of your life, you're putting your life on hold for someone, and that's totally fine because, you know, like you're taking care of someone you love, but at the same time, like a part of you is dying inside because you're kind of like held stagnant. The dad realizes this and pushes her out the door and kind of just tells her to do her grand adventure, to go have fun and to go find herself again. And then that's where she kind of goes and does it, and she slowly but surely kind of falls back in love with traveling, and she meets a companion along the way that she's able to kind of like share this burden that she has on her chest. It was just a fabulous story. I think I read this in one sitting because the audiobook was just so entertaining and so interesting, and you just felt so much pain for our characters and what they were going through. So definitely check this one out if you haven't already this year. Okay, so the next book that I have to recommend is this one called Coming Clean by Jen Trin. This is a celebrity romance. Let me preface this by I don't really like celebrity romances. I don't like how materialistic things get. I don't like how the popular media, or not popular media, but like paparazzi can potentially ruin the relationship for our hero and heroine. I just feel like it's just so superficial. But this one surprised me because I absolutely loved it so much. It was just so good. And this one is about our hero. I don't know why, but I was thinking of Simu Liu. I don't even know how to say his name. When I was reading this book. And basically our hero is an Asian actor. He is shot to fame because he was dating this really popular Asian actress. And he has a lot of projects. He has a lot of commercials. He's getting famous. He's climbing up the ranks. He's not like A-list celebrity, but he's kind of like a B-list celebrity. And the things and the insecurities that he feels towards his career includes him not being good enough, because he thinks that he's riding on the coattails of his girlfriend. He thinks that he is just only famous because his girlfriend is famous. The secret that he has from the public is the fact that they've actually separated, and that she's actually dating someone else and he's actually single. But they have to keep up like this appearance that they're still dating because they have a movie that's coming out like later on the year. And then our hero, while he's kind of like vacationing and trying to like de-stress from the whole situation and trying to get over the fact that his girlfriend no longer loves him, his girlfriend has since moved on, he meets our heroine, who is this really quirky like fashion designer. She's very eccentric. She's very different. She was not raised differently, but she behaves differently from a traditional Asian culture standpoint. And she rebels a lot. And so they're kind of like complete opposites attract. But they have this like really good like mesh of like yin and yang. And I just love seeing them on my page. And I love seeing them interact with each other. And I also really love the drama when we found out exactly why our hero broke up with his ex-girlfriend. It was just so good. It was delightful. Please go read it if you haven't already, for great Asian representation and then also for delightful drama. Okay, so the next book that I have is a romantasy. I think that's what we're calling it now. Romance books that have fantasy elements to it, or romance fantasy books. So this one's called The Demon of the Wood, and it's by Willow Quinn. It's an indie romance author that I found on Instagram. The cover looks really cute, so that's exactly why I picked it up. But I loved it because it was just such a cozy fall romance that I read during the fall time. Our heroine is mistreated because she's orphaned and she has to live with her uncle and his cousins, or her cousins. And she is the servant, she takes care of them, and she's always like kind of like verbally and mentally abused. Her mother had a really bad reputation because in order to support her, she had to kind of use her body for it. Her mother later on died, obviously, because she's orphaned. And then now she kind of has to live with like the reputation of her mother's past. And so nobody really treats her with respect. It's kind of like a Cinderella situation. And she goes out one day and she bumps into this person. At least she thinks it's a person. It's actually not a person. It's a monster. And our hero is the monster. Our hero is a gentle-hearted man. He just literally wants to live his life in peace, but the villagers think that he is the devil, you know? He's gonna cause so much harm to the village, and they're always on the hunt to try to capture him and to try to kill him. And then our heroine falls in love with him, obviously. So now she is kind of like very protective of him. It's such a cute and adoring story. It had a lot of action elements towards the end too as well, when our hero and our heroine were both in danger. Okay, the next book that I read that really surprised me was this one called Ruby Spencer's Whiskey Year by Rochelle Billow. And this one involves our heroine, who is a chef, deciding that she wants to run away from the big city. So she decides to go to Scotland to go take care of this like small Scottish pub. She thinks it's like hustling and bustling, but then when she arrives there, there's like nobody there and there's like no patrons, and she's just like, what the heck? Like, who am I cooking for? What am I doing? She's also living in this like really run down like house that she really needs a lot of repairs for. So enters our hero, who is this really gruff, burly, like bearded man who is like a man of few words, and he like fixes up the house for her. And during that time that he's constantly walking in and out of her house, they get to know each other more, they become friends, and then they become two lovers. It's a slow burn romance. And our heroine also learns to find more bits and pieces of herself and to really figure out like what she wants from her career now that she kind of stepped away from the big city, and then now she's moving into a small town. It's there where we also kind of meet all the town members and how they play and contribute to the overall like success of the town and tourism and things like that. I just really liked it because it transported me to Scotland, and I really want to go to Scotland now. Okay, so the next book that really surprised me that I really liked, it was this one called Same Time Next Year by Annabelle Monaghan. I think that's how you say her last name. This one is a second chance romance involving our heroine, who's already engaged to the perfect fiance. She needs to go back to the small town that she grew up in so that she can like, you know, hang out with her mom to kind of like plan the wedding that she's going to have in the big city. She thinks that she's like grown and developed into this like mature woman until she realizes that there's like a lot of parts of her from her past that she really misses, including her first love, which is our hero, who's still working in the small town. You know, while she is planning her wedding, she realizes that she messed up a lot. She realizes that she misses a lot of things too as well. And she rekindles her romance with our hero, who was her first love. And it's there where she kind of decides, like, does she want to live in the big city or does she want to move in the small town? I thought this was just like a refreshing summer, spring read, because that was when I read it. And it was just lighthearted, but good as well, and I definitely would recommend for those periods of time where you need a pick-me-up. One of the books that I thought that I also wouldn't like is this one that have been really popular on Instagram and on booktube, and then it got picked up by a publisher, so now it's even more popular. It's called Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I'm really excited for book number 2. I honestly love Lila Sage after I read this first book. I don't really like cowboy romances. I don't really find the appeal of cowboy romances, but this one was just so stinking fun. Our heroine is like kind of like a bull rider, or like she's just like, she does a lot of tricks, you know, on the on the animals. And she got into a really bad accident. Now she's really scared of getting back up on that horse, and so she doesn't ride anymore. But she's back in the small town after she kind of made a fool of herself in the bigger town. Like, she's kind of healing a bruised eagle right now. It's there where she meets her brother's best friend, who was really like her nemesis growing up because he would always kind of tease and bully her. And he still does it. But there's like an underlying tone that's very flirtatious in a way. And we soon realize that our hero has actually been harboring a crush for her for a very, very long time. And the bro code is what's stopping him from kind of like getting her. And so it's really time for these knuckleheads to stop being idiots and to kind of get together. So obviously very entertaining. It had an element of it that was a little bit darker than expected because they had PTSD trauma from the heroine falling off her horse in that accident and being like really scared, and then also like her just being traumatized from the past too as well. So just be aware of that, but overall still a very entertaining read, and I can't wait to pick up the next book in the series that's out on March 5th, I believe, in 2024. Okay, so a next book that I read that I just picked up randomly. I didn't really think too much of it. It's a Jane Austen retelling. It's called Emma of 83rd Street by Audrey Beliza and Emily Harding. Now, this one is obviously a retelling of Emma. I can't really tell you much about it because it was just such a fun story and I completely forgot everything about it, but I remember me like listening to the whole audiobook in one sitting at work. And it was just so fun. It was like a retelling of Emma. If you don't know what Emma is or you don't know the premise of Emma, it's basically a heroine who always matchmakes people in her life, but then causes a lot of issues and troubles because you're kind of playing with and toying with people's emotions. And it blew up in our heroine's face. And then meanwhile, our heroine Emma also has like a really charming like childhood best friend, close family friend situation, who is very smittenly in love with Emma, but you know Emma doesn't know because she's kind of too focused on everybody else except for the people that are really close to her. Another book that I was very surprised that I would really like is this one called My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Now the ratings are not that great. It's like 3.51. It's a paranormal contemporary romance involving our heroine who really needs a place to stay, and she finds this really cheap place to rent. She is skeptical of it at first, but as soon as she steps into this like really beautiful house and realizes that she has access to like a really big kitchen, a really nice bathroom, a really nice bedroom, a really nice library, a really nice living room, she decides that, you know, she's gonna go throw caution to the wind. Beggars can't be choosers, and she decides to stay with this mysterious man that knows nothing about the modern world. And it's only then until she realizes that she is having, like, she's living with a vampire who has been asleep for like decades and who has lost, you know, like the ability to like understand what the hell is happening in this world. So they together kind of like work as a partnership. You know, she teaches him the modern world and he provides a place for her to stay. And it's this charming book. It's a low angst and it was just fun. So I loved it. So definitely we'll be checking more of Jenna's books when she releases more of them in the future. Okay, so another book that is kind of like a forced arranged marriage kind of situation is this one called King of Wrath by Anna Hong. And I've done such a good job with catching up on most of Anna Hong's books this year. I've read all of her books in the King of Sin series so far that has been released. And then I also read the whole Twisted series. Let me know if you want to know about my thoughts on that. But I think I did a really great job on reviewing those books on my Instagram. But King of Wrath is a forced arranged marriage. Our hero wants to destroy her families, so our hero kind of like forces her to marry him. And then afterwards, they have this really intoxicating relationship. And then our heroine is kind of just really innocent. She's like lighthearted. She doesn't really know what's going on, but she knows that she's going to be forced into this marriage that she doesn't want a part of. She's very strong. She's very independent. She owns her own business. She's like, why the heck am I doing this? And then it's not only until like the grand reveal of like why it's being proposed is where, you know, our hero has to come back and apologize and grovel. Another book that really surprised me was this really like weird Western romance novel that I just picked up off the shelves at my local bookstore. It's called Kit McBride Gets a Wife by Amy Berry. I've seen people review this book on Instagram, but I don't think a lot of people talk about it. It's this story. It's one of those stories where there's so many different characters that play so many different roles in the story. Like they all have their own little parts. It's not always just focusing on our hero and heroine, but we have these like multiple side characters. Not necessarily like they all have their own different plot lines because that can get a little bit tiresome and it can get a little bit confusing, but they all have their own distinct personalities that liven up the scenes and that make the book interesting. And that's exactly what happened with this one. Our hero needs a bride, so he orders like a mail order bride. And then our heroine comes. And then they realize that like he never ordered one in the first place. And who ordered one for him? None other than like kind of like the little sister. Another book that really surprised me is this book that was written by a Canadian author that was set in Quebec. And I love Quebec. Like I went to Quebec like twice in the past 2 years. I really enjoy this French province in Canada. It just feels like I'm in Europe. And this one is called It Happened One Christmas by Chantal Goutin. And it involves our heroine who is a movie producer and she is looking for locations to film her perfect holiday movie. And she decides that she needs to film it in this small town in Quebec. And it's there where she really wants to film on this like property that is owned by our hero, who is very grumpy, very grouchy, and does not want anything to do with this like Christmas holiday movie, ruining his Christmas tree farm area and land. And it's there where they kind of always butt heads a lot, and then they grow into a friendship because they begin talking more. And then they start getting into like the planning of the movie and like the pros of like planning this movie and having this movie take place on his business. Another book that I thought I wouldn't like, but I ended up really liking was this one called The Deja Glitch, and it's by Holly James. And then afterwards, this one involves our hero who is literally living in his own Groundhog Day. But it's followed from our heroine's point of view. So she meets this guy, she has a kiss with him, magic sparks fly. The next day, she thinks nothing of it, and then she starts seeing people that thinks that she has seen before in the past, and she sees the guy that she kissed the prior day, but then she starts realizing that is she having deja vu? Because it feels like the same day is being repeated over and over and over again, but she's not too sure. And then our hero tells her it is, because he's been living the same day for the past 150 days. And he needs to get out of this glitch. And the only way that he can get out of this deja vu glitch is to have her fall in love with him in that one day that they always have to repeat. It was just fun. It was just fun. It was fun and entertaining. She's like freaking out all the time. She's going to like a psychic to try to figure it out. The psychic is telling her like there's like really like strange energy around you. Then we have our hero who is just like madly in love with her. She is not in love with him yet because she keeps forgetting all the interactions that she's ever had with him. But he's so patient and he's so loving. It was a fun story. Definitely go check it out. It's not that long too as well for audiobook. I think I sat there in like 2 sittings and I finished it. The next book that I read that I really enjoyed was this one called The Second Chance Hotel by Sierra Godfrey. This one was fun. I got this book randomly, I think from St. Martin's Press, and they just gave it to me unsolicited. And I was like, well, what is this book? And I found it on Libby, and I decided, hey, you know what? It's on my shelf. I might as well just read it. It's so good. It's about our heroine who really decides that she needs to change her life. You know, she is just so sick and tired of her life. She had a really bad incident at work that took place that left her feeling like she has nobody left in her circle, in her corner. And then she decides to flee. She books a hotel room in this like small island. You know, it's like a bed and breakfast situation. It's in Greece. You know, she's just going to find herself there and call it a day. But then what ends up happening is that she meets this other American traveler that has been traveling around Europe for many months now. They spark up a conversation. They have a really great attraction to each other. They think it's going to be a vacation fling. The owner of the hotel is very warm and welcoming and, you know, like bringing them in, giving them delicious food, taking them to like local weddings, taking them to local areas to go find Greece and to go love Greece even more. And it's only then until they realize they're stuck in a situation when the owner of the hotel dies and passes on the hotel to both these two people. Suddenly they're not partners, they're business partners, and they're at each other's throats. So if it's really like friends to lovers, and then lovers to enemies, and then enemies to lovers once again, because they really just hate each other. It's just like raw and realistic in terms of why they hate each other, because they are both thrown into a situation that they don't want to be in. They have this huge responsibility of running this hotel, and that essentially keeps up the economy of this small town. There's like a whole cast of characters that come into play. But the things that I really liked about this book is just like the raw and realistic sides of these characters. They're not perfect. They're very flawed in their own individual ways. They are not afraid to show how selfish they can be with each other, and they are just so real, like, and comforting in that way. This was a long video, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for always sticking around with me and supporting me. To the people that always constantly comment on the live shows that I do with Rachel from Rachel Read and Sings about how, you know, when am I gonna come back? I am going to do my best in 2024. Hopefully you guys have some more books to add to your radar as you embark this 2024 reading journey. And hopefully we stick together till then. I'll see you guys later in a new video. Bye.